Hello, welcome to another podcast and a conversation with Advocata Studio. There are a lot of conversations at the household level. Are we going to buy a vehicle? Are we going to build the house? What are we going to do in the coming months? And there's conversation and hope at the same time. And at the same time, there are complaints that the prices are high, and though the inflation is coming down, they really do not reflect the prices. So to discuss mainly on the construction sector, one main ingredient is the tiles, the wall tiles, the floor tiles, the bathware. And we got the just right person at our studio, Mr. Mahendra Jayasekara, who is the managing director of Lanka Tiles. Mr. Jayasekara, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Just give us a color of how this tile market looks like at the moment. We know there was a difficult time during COVID, and there was economic crisis. So just give us like what's the color of the market? How is the business? Is it picking up or whether still struggling? Just give us like what is the demand, supply, how much is your market share?
Yeah, Dhananath, actually the tile market is not looking good at all. If you ask me, we are really struggling. Actually, tile market, total tile demand, pre-COVID 30 million square meters a year has now dropped down to about 20 million square meters a year. And actually, sadly, what happened was pre-COVID, actually, we were running very high stocks, very high levels of stock. Actually, we had about 10-12 months stock, Rosel, Lanka Tiles, even Mac Tiles. I mean, I am not speaking on their behalf, but I know what the situation was. So, at that time, actually, our total capacity was about 15-16 million square meters a year. And we were selling only about 10 to 12 square meters a year. Rest was imported. That means out of 30 million, about 18 million was imported. We had only 40% market share. Mm-hmm. So with that, actually, after a few years, we started building up stocks. We couldn't sell. Actually, when COVID broke out, we were just about to close down factory on a long-term basis. But then COVID came, the government had foreign exchange issues, and there was a tile import ban. And thereafter, when the country reopened after COVID, there was a pent-up demand because people were rushing to buy tiles to finish their work and finish their construction work. So with that, there was a pent-up demand. And since there were no imports to the country, we were able to sell our stocks. At that time, of course, the currency had taken a huge beating. We were buying a dollar at about 400 rupees, and our cost went up, and then our prices went up, and the demand slowly came down. Now it has come down to 20 million. But what happened was, during that pent-up demand, we could not meet the demand. And then at that time, what happened was, the government told us to go ahead and increase capacity. And they were actually every 2 weeks calling us and asking whether we had invested money in, whether we had initiated expansion. So we had no choice but to take their word and go and expand capacity.
This was in 2021?
22. And then Rosel, Lanka Tiles, Mac Tiles, we double capacity. Now we have 30 million square meter capacity annually. Demand is 20 million. Out of that 20 million, 10 million is imported. And we are down to 10 million square meter sales a year with 30 million capacity. So we are in deep trouble.
So what
that's
was
the color?
What was that's sounds not good for sure. What was the investment, and where did you invest? Like, just give us also.
Yeah, actually,
what type of investment is required for this?
Now, Lanka Wall Tiles total investment is 7 billion rupees. I think Mac Tiles, I believe, they invested over 10 billion rupees. Rosel also invested about 4 billion rupees. So 7 billion at Lanka Wall Tiles, then about 10 billion Mac Tiles, and another about 3 billion Rosel, our total investment in the last 2-3 years would have been 20 billion.
Was if I may ask, like, was this investment was done on like debt or on
Mostly on debt.
Mostly on debt.
Yeah. Nobody raised capital through rights issues.
Okay. And like, what was the investment, Mr. Jayasekara? Was it like, did you put up a new factory, or whether did you increase the production lines, or what was the type of investment?
Actually, if you take the total, the entire industry, one company came up with a brand new line, big line, and then at Lanka Tiles, at Lanka Ball Tiles, we came up with what we did was we expanded the capacities of our existing lines, and then Rosell also did the same thing.
Okay, so before President became president, when he was launching his economic policy at a Colombo hotel, he basically brought out this example during COVID time, the prices of tiles. He specifically mentioned that. I'm not sure whether you were at the audience.
I was not at the audience, yes.
So he said the prices went up. I think it went to about 2,400 if I recall right.
Yes.
And then it came back and people had to stay in a queue. And it sounded like there was like some level of artificial price increase, and it was brought down with the competition coming down, competition increasing later on. What do you have to say? People also sometimes say, okay, the tile prices went up and now it's coming down. What was the reason? What's your evaluation of the context?
See, it's very simple, Dhananath, because actually these very unfortunate people don't have a clear grasp of what exactly was happening in the economy. If you take the tile industry, 70 to 80% of our cost of production is imported. Right, glaze materials, gas, punches, dyes, dye assembly, components, everything is imported. So 70 to 80% of cost of production is imported. Now, what happened to the dollar? Right, from 190 rupees, it went up to 390, and actually we had to buy sometimes dollar at 400 plus also. So our cost increased 100%, and then of course we had to pass that down to the consumer. But the problem is people speak as if only tile prices went up. What about cement prices? Even as we speak, cement prices are about thrice the price of what it was. And then how about electrical cables? How about aluminium? I run one aluminium company, right? From pre-COVID 700,000 rupees a ton to 1,600 rupees a ton today. Right? People don't complain. But tiles, yes, it went up to 2,400 per square meter from about 1,000 rupees a square meter. Now it is down to 1,000 rupees. So that is because at the moment, we are just trying to sell our stocks at cost. But people complain about tile pricing, forgetting about everything else, as if construction cost is 100% tiles. I mean, that's how people project this to be. I can't understand this.
Okay, this was people, and also I think also the president who said it. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. And also, how is you mentioned an important fact that you said 75% of your cost of a tile is
70 to 75% is imported.
Imported. That is mainly coming from LP gas.
LP gas actually. Energy accounts for about anything between 40 to 50% depending on the world market price. Then the glaze material cost accounts for about 20% of the total cost of production. And then the balance is die assembly, the components, spare parts and things like that accounts on other the balance really. So that is very much the structure, about 10%.
Okay.
So 45%, 20%, 10% is roughly the structure.
Got it. And now then you had when we had after 2021-22 there we had a complete import ban, and importers were on the other side. We had a similar conversation with the importers, tile importers, and what they say is like the tariff on tile is too high. They mention it's about 130%, which is almost doubled, which they seems unfair. And what is your take? Because on the one side, there's a restriction on imports, and at the same time, you're also competing at the same market space. What do you have to tell about it?
See, actually, if you see, high tariff is not only for tiles, Dhananath. Even for aluminium, high tariff, 30% tariff. There are lots of other components. Now, say, for example, cable, impossible to import really, right? I think if you take electrical cables, I don't think even 5% is imported really. So there is high tariff on certain items. For tiles also, there is high tariff. That is because the government has been, always the successive governments had been, of course, they have been half-hearted, but they were trying to protect the industry also. Increase, because actually at one time, I don't know whether you recall, I think during late 90s and early 2000s, the government declared ceramic industry as a thrust industry because they thought ceramic industry can develop into a big industry, not only to export, but also import substitution really. So that's not, it is not a situation that is unique only to the tile industry. There are lots of other items that attract 30%.
No, true.
duty.
I think you're absolutely right. So a lot of construction material, tiles, cables, cement, everything has very high tariffs.
Yeah.
In fact, as we had the conversation before, if you look at cost of construction as a result is very high in Sri Lanka, and according to our analytics, if you look at the savings per person for 30 years, it's one of the highest in the world. Even we beat New York and Tokyo when it comes to the housing prices. So don't you think it's unfair by the consumer's point of view that they have to spend more, 40% or 35% higher, when it, I know you mentioned a broad range of products from cement to aluminium to everything. Isn't it unfair? Because if you look at the conversation that we earlier had, people want to upgrade their living standard. And I know you stand with your other work on improving the living standard of people. By these high tariffs, isn't it restricting them, our own people, on achieving their basic needs, such as a roof above their head or any other basic need? What is
No, I 100% agree with you, because why actually high tax? See, Dhananath, taxes kill the economy, right? Taxes kill economy. It could be income tax, it could be VAT, it could be import tariff, cess or whatever. Taxes kill economies. That I understand perfectly, right? Now, why there is high tariff? Why there are high taxes in the country? Because the government is inefficient. Right now, when the government is inefficient, when the economy is inefficient, those inefficiencies are borne by the local industry, right? So we also bear the cost of that government inefficiency. So if the government wishes to protect an industry and maybe promote investments in the country, in spite of these inefficiencies, they have no choice but to tax imports at high rates. Tax you on your income at a high rate, tax you on VAT at a high rate. So basically what is happening is, yes, increased taxes, increased tariff, increased cost of production, cost of manufacturing, cost of construction, they are a burden. They are a burden. I 100% agree with you. But the thing is, that is because the economy is run inefficiently. And you can't single out and say, okay, tariff on tiles is higher, tariff on cement is higher, tariff on something else is higher. No, overall tariff structure in the country is high. Tax structure is high. So that reflects the inefficiency of the economy.
No, agree. I 100% agree that it's an inefficiency. At the same time, now even if you look at the negative list of when you sign for trade agreements, there's a list called negative list. Even if you sign the agreement, those will not be under that.
Yes.
That will be still applicable for the tariff structure which is implied. So we see as a overall there's very high tariff. No, I agree. It is not only on probably on construction material. There are high tariff on even from some of the food items as well. But my point is it actually, because there are two types of tariffs. No, one is to earn revenue.
Yes.
And sometimes there's a tariff to block the entry of another product.
Yes.
So in your view, to which sector that this tariff falls into? Is it for both? And you mentioned about the inefficiency of the economy, but isn't it doing more harm than good?
See, it depends on what the country focuses on in terms of what industries to promote, what industries to protect. what are the sectors in which they are trying to attract investments. Depending on that only, you have to come up with come up with your taxation policy, because I mean, there are so many objectives of imposing tariff, Dhananath. One is to raise government revenue, then protect local industry, then promote investments in the local economy, maybe national security, maybe social and environmental issues, maybe to address trade imbalances between countries. So all kinds of things, tariff is imposed. Now, here the issue is successive governments have looked at ceramic industry and certain other industries as industries that need to be built in this country in order to make use of the local raw materials and the resources, really. So you have to finally understand that local economy, there should be local production. It could be agriculture, it could be industrial goods, it could be other services. There should be local production for people to generate revenue. Otherwise, how are they going to spend money on imported products? If so, the government will have to decide what are the industries we are going to protect, nurture, and develop. Now, if I were to ask that question, I would think revenue and protection in this case go together. Go together, because now you spoke of negative list. Now, okay, when we sign trade agreements, we have negative lists, and in the negative list, all trade agreements we have signed thus far have tiles in the negative list. So, like that, any trade agreement, our counterparty, other country on the other side also has their negative list. So, why do they have a negative list? Because they don't want imports to come in big volumes in that product category, because they want to protect their industry. They want to encourage investments in that industry. So you should not view tariff only as a tool to protect industries. No, it is a tool, and it is a tool to generate revenue also. Definitely, it's a tool to protect industries. I mean, the recent most example, now people thought America is a champion of free trade. Now, what is America doing now? They have only 6 tile factories. But earlier, about 2 years ago, 2017, they imposed 290% duty on Chinese tile imports to USA. Today, Trump administration imposed, recently, 25% tariff on aluminium imports to the country. Why? Because they want to protect their small industries, really.
So, when it comes to protection, now it is what if we protect it through a government subsidy instead of a total tariff barrier? Because when you put a tariff barrier, basically the choice is limited for all consumers. But even if you give like a direct subsidy, because then you get a chance to compete, contest, and even it can be targeted, like what you mentioned many times, the government, it was considered as thrust industry. So if you really need the capacity or the technology or the know-how, what if the government supports as a budget support on industries, which government anyway is doing for some industries? And if that's the case, what is the approximate figure for a year, and how long do you need to come back and to fight? And is it feasible or possible?
No, actually, I don't think subsidies in the long run will really work, because those are very difficult to administer. Now, earlier there was an export subsidy. Now that has been completely taken off. We don't get any subsidy on our exports, really.
Okay.
So, if the government were to give a subsidy for industries, I think it will cost about maybe 5 to 6 billion rupees a year.
Okay.
5 to 6 billion.
5 to 6 billion.
5 to 6 billion a year. Actually, there are certain things they can do. Now, say, for example, about a few years ago, I was about to ink an agreement to set up a tile factory in Andhra Pradesh. Right now, they have very targeted subsidies. We were promised 15% discount on electricity. Right. For 5 years.
Right.
And then they promised our total investment in fixed assets could be recovered against your VAT liability. Output VAT for 5 years subject to a 25% limit, really. So, then the moment you start production in your factory, your total stamp duty, transfer tax on land, investment in land is refunded. So, like that, there are so many subsidies you can come up with. Unfortunately, in the country, what is happening is, in our country, we have taken it up. Actually, you give subsidies, government gives incentives for you to start a factory. Once you start the factory, it's your baby.
Okay.
They won't. It's up to you how you run it really. But in countries like India, it's not like that. They will not give you incentives to set up the factory, but they will give you incentives to make money. What is more important? Giving incentives for you to make money or incentives to start the factory? Incentives to make money is more worth. That's why investments are flowing in there.
Yeah. No, my other argument is, Jayasekara, now let's say, now your argument, okay, we have to protect the, as a reason for protecting that industry, let's, you increase the tariff. But imagine you mentioned 75% of your input is imported.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned was glaze, right?
Glaze material.
So imagine I am starting a glaze production in Sri Lanka. And I go to the government and say, look, you have to support me.
Yeah.
Right? And Mr. Jayasekara is importing. And you increase the tariff by, let's say, 130%. Same protection. And now you have no choice other than buying from me and maybe few others. And now as a result, your glaze prices will go by about 130%.
Fine.
Right? So imagine if everyone does it, and you will be, ultimately you will be a victim of this process. Now, isn't it a never-ending cycle? Because everyone comes and says, okay, I need this, and 75% of your, of course, it's higher, more is on the energy side. But even in terms of material, if I come and say, look, you only these guys, or the local tile manufacturers have to buy it from me. Stop importing glaze, and you will be a victim.
Yeah, no, actually, it's a good argument, because but it doesn't work like that, Dhananath. Because now, why would a government want to promote an industry? Because that government thinks, okay, maybe the country has raw materials that can be converted to finished goods. But in your example, to make glaze materials, we don't have raw materials in the country. So that is, otherwise, of course, yes. Because then you go and tell the government, look, I want to start a glaze manufacturing plant. Give me some protection. Let the government give protection. But then what happens is, then I decide whether I use your product or imported product. Now, in that scenario, if I am using an imported product, I should be given a subsidy if I were to export tiles using imported products. Otherwise, I can use the local product. I am not a victim. Because then what happens is, of course, the government recognizes there are raw materials that can be converted to glaze materials in the country. It will generate so much employment. It will generate so much tax revenue for the country. It will generate so much employment for the country. Then, yes, based on numbers, you decide, yes, these industries Sri Lanka should be in. But that's how it should be looked at.
But isn't it restricting us from exporting? Because every time when you add that, it adds not only for your sector, it adds to the rest of the sectors. For an example, if tile prices go up, as you know, it goes up the room. It jacks up the room prices in hotels because hotels need to refurbish.
Yeah.
So likewise, when you do that on multiple rounds, not only on construction, but as you said, like on other items, everything. When everyone start doing it, aren't we just restricting ourselves to producing to this law?
Of course we are.
20 million?
Of course we are. That is why the government has to have an industrial strategy. You can't be imposing tariff on everything, no, right? You can't be giving tariff protection to everybody who comes and asks tariff protection. You have to analyze and work out the numbers and see what is the benefit of this tariff. What is the benefit of this tariff? Otherwise, you can't. That is why you need industrial strategy. The government have to have an industrial strategy. Without that, you can't just impose tariff.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay. Then I would like to bring another argument. That is, you mentioned that basically the tariff is to protect the industries and government has to identify industrial strategy. By paying more for certain sectors, that limits their choices to boost the other industries. Now, for an example, let's take the example of rice. If I pay a higher price for rice, that means I have to let go something else. If I pay 200 rupees instead of 100 rupees for 1 kilogram of rice, that additional 100% was something that I could have spent on carrot or beans.
Yeah, sure.
So
opportunity.
Then, opportunity cost. So basically, by paying additional 100% on 100 rupees on rice, I am actually hampering the carrot farmer and the beans farmer, because now I do not have the space to spend for that. I can apply same for construction. When you're paying 100% additional on tile, that means your local furniture guy will lose out. The curtain guy will lose out. The monsoon curtain guy will lose out. Whoever will lose out. So in that sense, aren't we shrinking the economy by cutting down a lot of other employment opportunities? Is my second argument.
No, yes, your argument is correct. That is why now, once again, I go back to my previous argument, because the government will have to decide what industries should be protected or promoted. Let's not use the word protected, right? Because it's a dirty word, right? For economists, it's a dirty word. So
okay,
let's not call it protected.
Okay.
So I say promoted. Now the government will have to decide what is going to generate revenue for people. Now, if it is rice, then you have to see, okay, if you take our land mass, how much of it can be used for rice production? How much of it can be used for vegetable production? If the rice production land mass is less than the vegetable production, yes, your argument is correct. So that is why there should be agricultural strategy. What are you going to promote? What are you not going to promote? You have to understand that, because otherwise, say, for example, rice is a good example because it's a very controversial product now, right? Like tiles, right?
All called mafias.
All mafias, yes. All mafias, right? Actually, before I say that, when you say mafia, when there is a strong mafia in any country, that means the government is weak. The government should take that as a message, really. If there are mafias in the country, that means we have a weak government, right? Okay, having said that, rice, if you take the rice production, right, now about 27% of our population is living on agriculture, right? About maybe 15% is on rice cultivation or paddy cultivation. Now, you have to see, okay, if you were to discourage rice production in the country and allow import of rice, right, at low tariff or no tariff or whatever, what will happen to these people? What will happen to these people? Actually, interestingly, this conversation arose at a Minister of Finance meeting many years ago. And actually, one officer was saying, okay, if we allow rice to be imported to the country, our farmers will go out of business, but they can work in other sectors. Maybe financial services. So I asked him, do you expect a farmer from Polonnaruwa to come and work at HSBC? Do you expect a farmer from Polonnaruwa to come and work at commercial bank? It doesn't happen, because their livelihood, the structure of the economy, structure of the country is such that the agriculture has space. So you need to protect that. That's why Japan is protecting their paddy farmers. Can you export rice to Japan? There's 500% duty in Japan. Can you export rice to China? You can't, because livelihood of that population is anchored there. And if the farmers don't grow rice, cultivate paddy, and if they don't get income, how are they going to have money to buy imported rice? So that's why there should be that's why there should be overall strategy, Dhananath.
Okay, and
otherwise, I agree with you. In whatever form, taxes kill the economy. That's why it has to be managed.
Got it. And now, you have been long in this game, about 27 years.
Yeah, yes. 27 years.
So,
yes.
do you think actually this with whatever let's say promotion strategy with the government, is this an industry that you think we can compete globally and get some exports? And also tell us whether actually Lanka tile are you exporting, or is there a niche market? Because sometimes some products are very exclusive that even you are not competitive for the mass market, where all Sri Lankans want, like, let's say, a reasonable price tile, but there can be a niche that you are highly priced, highly competitive in one niche market, but you are exporting for a niche audience. Can you give us some?
Yes, actually, see, Dhananath, what we need to understand is our tile industry is very small. Our tile factories are also, by global standards, we are, I would say, micro industries.
Right.
by world standard. Because in India also, I mean, there are factories. One factory would be the size of all factories here put together.
Right.
So, but now actually we have certain advantages in exporting. That is what we need to capture and capitalize. Because now, say for example, or exploit, not capitalize, exploit. Now, say for example, if you go to India, right, you go to a large tile factory, you will be buying what they produce. But if you come to Lanka tiles, or if you go to Rosella or Mac tiles, you can get what you can get them to make what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That is the difference. That is the difference of value proposition we offer to our overseas buyers, and that way we have created a niche market. But of course, competition is very, very heavy, because now at the moment, India is the biggest tile manufacturer in the world. They have surpassed China. Now, what they do is basically they sell large quantity of tile, their tile production in the local market, and they get a good price for that. They make their money there, and excess production they export at lower prices, really. So to compete with that, we have to go with a niche product. And that's what we are doing. We export mosaics to USA. We are the only company probably from Asia selling tiles online in the USA. So we have a distribution operation. We sell tiles in Australia. So we export. But it's a niche product. We can't export in hundreds of containers, really.
Okay.
Hundreds of containers we can, but thousands of containers we can't.
Is difficult. Yeah. Okay, got it. Mr. Jayasekara, also now at one point you also imported tiles, right, in 2018. Yes. Like, what was why it was the case, and isn't it? I was about to ask, like, if the challenges are so much. As you said, now you have invested altogether about 7 billion, and you are somewhat bleeding, and you have to always come and contest with the importers. Isn't it? Isn't there a way that you actually import? Because, and of course, 75% of your manufacturing is also anyway imported.
Yeah.
So isn't it profitable to import, and like, you import and do a value addition, and also you export for the niche markets? Or isn't it a feasibility? Haven't you tried?
No, it's definitely a feasibility. Actually, I wish I did not expand production here. Right? Okay. I wish because when we imported tiles from India, especially in 2018, Dhananath, we imported 1,500 containers of tiles from India. Lanka Tiles was India's single largest buyer, not as a country, but as a country, as a customer. Single customer, we were India's single largest customer. We bought 1,500 containers. But what did we buy? What did we import? We imported sizes that we could not produce in our factory. Okay. Especially 2x2, 2x4, then 2.5 by 4. So like that, big format tiles, and then 1 meter by 1 meter, 8 by 4 tiles. So massive slabs we imported, because we did not want to at that time invest money in expanding production capacity here, because we knew the government is half-hearted, really. The government didn't have a strategy. One time they go and increase import tariff. Then when the importers go and scream and lobby, they bring down tariffs. So it was a very uncertain environment. And at that time, we didn't want to, because I thought at that time, importing and selling is feasible if that's what the government wants, really.
And isn't now the other question is, if the cost of production is reasonable in other parts of the world, let's say India, we know apparel has expanded to India and Africa. Isn't it an option? Like, I know you will move out from Sri Lanka in that case, but isn't there a way that you move your factory premises to India or somewhere else, where you have better supply chains, and then, like, as a company, I know then the dollars won't come to the country, but still as a business, that's how the businesses work, to export for other parts of the world. What was stopping you from doing that?
No, actually, we wanted to do that. That's why I earlier said we were about to ink an agreement with the Andhra Pradesh government to set up a tile factory. At one time, we wanted to set up a tile factory in Bangladesh also. But for some reason or the other, we did not go ahead with those investments. And in the meantime, the situation in the country also changed, and the government was basically behind us, asking us why we are not expanding, so on and so forth. So, but definitely going forward, that will have to be looked at as an option, because because cost of production in other countries like India is definitely lower, because when we imported 1,500 containers in 2018, to do so, I ran 7 lines really, on a near lease basis really, not quite a lease, but like the dedicated lines I ran. And then I realized that even raw material, what we import from Italy, when we pay 100 rupees a kg from Italy, in India we bought at 70 rupees.
Right.
Because of the volumes. And then machinery also, when we paid 100 rupees for a particular machine, in India we bought that machine from Italy, same supply at 75 rupees. So those were the economies of scale. And also the scale is such that you can have other advantages. Say for example, Lanka tiles today, between the two factories, we produce about 22,000 square meters a day. Right? To produce 22,000 square meters a day, I fire 7 kilns. In India, it will be 1 kiln. So,
Right.
You can be that much competitive. So, why it has not happened in Sri Lanka? Because constantly changing policy framework has really discouraged us from going for bigger factories, bigger facilities, because we don't know what we will be up against next year.
At the same time, now this you have been in this game for 27 years. That is including when the tile factory was run by the government.
Actually, I joined Lanka Tiles just after the privatization.
Just after the privatization. So how you also mentioned, compared to the global scale of the factories, we are like a micro or a small industry. So in terms of what's the future looks like, you mentioned you have tried to set up something in India, and what is like for the industry as the local manufacturers, like what assurance that you can give, or what strategies that the people should know on bringing down the prices, at the same time assuring quality at the same time? What are you thinking? What are you strategizing as at now? Is it a continuation of higher tariffs? Because at one point it can go other direction.
Actually, what we are asking for is not higher tariff. I have to be very clear on that.
Okay.
Actually, we don't mind even slightly lower tariff if these importers are paying proper taxes.
Okay.
Say for example, actually there are few areas the government needs to address. One is basically under invoicing is definitely taking place. Right now, say for example, I presented some figures to the government about a month ago. Sanitary ware, we were importing sanitary ware also. We were importing tiles. When we imported tiles in 2018, our average price was about 440. Declared price, our actual price, because we are a listed company, we can't send money through Hawala or anything like that, right? We were paying about 440 rupees dollars a square meter, and the importers are importing at about $3.25, $3. So I asked them, how was it possible for them to import at that price? If we were paying 440. Same thing. When we import sanitary ware from China, when we pay 0.95 cents per kg, imported sanitary ware come at 0.56 per kg. If those prices are correct, then I must be making a lot of money outside the country, Dhananath. So, one thing is that actually we told the government, don't increase tariff, but make sure that the right price is declared. Don't let these people under-invoice.
I think that's valid for not only for tile importers,
everything
for
else.
Anyone else. Okay.
Right? That's number one. Value for duty has to be monitored and determined. Number two is they have to collect.
Now, one second, if I may interrupt for a second. Now, I think from the little that I know, we had a conversation with the Vehicle Importers Association. What they said was, regardless of the price that the vehicle importers declare, the government decides. I mean, there's a way that the government decides. They check the engine capacity and they say, look, you can mention this is your auction price, but this is the price, and you being taxed at that price. So you think, is it applicable for tiles or isn't it?
It's not quite applicable.
Okay.
It's not quite applicable because at the moment, actually there is a minimum price set at 390, but the customs at its discretion varies the price. So as a result of that, a lot of under-invoicing takes place. And also sometimes, actually more than that, our worry is whether importers pay VAT.
Okay.
VAT. when they sell. Because Dhananath, it's like this. Say, for example, you import a tile at a CIF price of 76 rupees.
Yeah.
Right? Then you pay 30% duty, it becomes 100. Right? Then you pay 18% VAT on that. Then it becomes 118. 18 rupees VAT. You go and sell it in the market for 150 rupees. Are you paying VAT on that 150 rupees? Most of the people don't pay. However much they say, most of the people don't pay. Government is free to check. Actually, there are hundreds of importers. Hundreds of importers don't mean they are real importers. They are employees, and all individuals. They get hold of individuals, give their identity cards, open a VAT registration number, and import. Really, you can go through the tile importers list and see how many importers are there. But they are not really importers. So what do? They basically do that to get over the VAT threshold. So what we told the government was, okay, if you are not paying VAT, when you sell it at 150, you should be paying VAT on that 18%, 27 rupees. But you pay only 18, right? So we told the government, why don't you collect that VAT in advance? If I were customs, I tell Dhananath, you have imported this tile, now you are paying 18 rupees VAT, but you are going to sell this product at 150 rupees. How about VAT on that? 27 rupees, now you pay, and you claim it in your VAT return. Then, plus, you are going to sell this at 150 rupees. You are going to maybe make a net profit of 5 rupees. Right? And how is income tax? Are you paying income tax on that? No. Most of the people don't pay. So, 30% income tax, 1.5 rupees. Why don't you pay now and claim it in your income tax return? So, instead of 18 rupee collection, now the government is collecting 28.5 rupees deal. If you can do that, we can compete. Okay. So, it's not a tariff protection we are looking for. No, there should be a level playing field. It cannot be 100% level like this table. It will be bumpy, but somewhat level playing field should be afforded to local manufacturers to compete. Otherwise, how can they compete? Really?
No, I agree. If there's no level playing field, I think we have seen it on even, let's say, in the poultry industry. For an example, the known brands who at one point was, for an example, let's take an example, Bahira. So when they sell it to Keel Super, of course they have to pay VAT. But the person where I buy chicken at the you call the wet market, they may not pay VAT. So in a way that you are unfavoring the big guy. You can argue that, okay, you are, the scales are different, but basically when the chicken prices ideally the Bahira producer probably is higher than what I buy at the normal market. So the same thing can happen, which I agree. But on that is, I think the argument was, we had the same conversation. They say it's either they are below that threshold. I agree with your point. Agree in the sense like, okay, there can be a case that individuals are just registering, so they anyway fall behind the.
Roughly about 1 million square meters of tiles are imported. 1 million square meters. So 1 million square meters tiles imports means roughly at say 1,000 rupees a square meter is 1 billion rupees. No.
Yeah.
It's 1 billion rupees.
On their defense, now your raw materials are tariff free because you're right. So aren't they anyway paying VAT because you need not to pay VAT twice? No, they are anyway paying the VAT at the point of importing.
Right.
So then they have already paid the VAT.
Yeah. On their imported price.
On their imported price.
Not the selling price.
Not the selling price.
Right.
So anyway, they have paid the VAT at the imported price. So do they really need to pay sell? I mean, of course, the regulation is you have to charge the VAT when you are selling it.
Selling, yeah.
But isn't it?
VAT is on the value added.
VAT is on the value added.
Yeah.
So they are not adding any value. I mean,
no, but their margin is the value add.
Their margin is the value add. So you mean the charge is okay? I get the point.
Actually, I mean, in that case. Actually, it's their input, no?
Yeah.
It's their input. Imported price is the input. In that case, the local manufacturer should be allowed to pay VAT on the production cost. If they allow us to pay VAT at the production cost and not on the selling price, no problem.
Okay.
Then we are competing really.
Okay. So, okay. Are you still actually, are you compete if the VAT problem was solved? Even without because I think the 130% adds mainly from the cess and the PAL. which called the para tariffs. And cess was actually a export. It was supposed to be an export tariff where cess stand for commodity export subsidy scheme. So still, are you confident that you can compete if they solve the VAT issue? Okay, let's say you bring the VAT threshold to 0, because now there's a threshold that everybody has to
pay tax,
pay VAT. If you are doing something, you have to charge 18% VAT, which you can claim later on based on your inputs. Do you think then you, because you said you're not asking for a tariff increase, or like you're not worried about the tariff, but if everyone pays VAT, and if you make it a level playing field, is it contestable?
It is contestable. We can compete, but I must say, still there will be a price difference of about 10 to 12% really. Doesn't matter, because because there is a value proposition we offer to the customer. Because you buy an imported product, if there is a complaint, bad luck. They are not going to give you tiles free, right? And say, for example, after few years, if you want another few tiles of the same thing, you will not be able to buy that. But we offer that. For that, there is a premium. Okay. And, superior service or whatever, there is a premium that we can command. Really.
Okay. But then why it is, so then in that case, because at the moment it's 130%. Even if you add the VAT, let's say it's 18%, right? And let's say keep like another 10% addition. So if you remove that cess, and if you bring the tariff and solve that VAT issue, so isn't it still better to bring the tariff rate down in that sense? Because your worry is that 18% of the VAT.
Yes, that is one worry.
That's one worry.
That is one worry. Okay. That is one worry. But the duty should be based on the actual price.
Okay.
They should not be allowed to import products at any price.
Okay.
Because that is why world over, internationally, there are mechanisms called anti-dumping duties, countervailing duties, because people use this as a way of invading markets, as a way of selling products below cost. Because Dhananath, you should not forget, actually, that way it's sad. Our people don't understand this. Even our politicians sadly don't understand this. Now, say, for example, recently, we have a tile operation in India, in Bangalore, right? When we exported our first 3 tile containers, it got stuck in India, in Bangalore dry port for 3 months. They were asking us various questions. They asked one question at a time. They asked, okay, what is the cost? Then we give the cost. Then they ask, what is the price you sell this product in Australia? Second question. Then we give Australia price. Then they ask, after that, they ask, what is the price in America? What is the price in Sri Lanka? Like that, they ask various questions to make sure that the products get delayed, get into the market. And that is how they look after their industries. They look after their country, their interest. But here, everything imported, we take with open hands, really. There should be a mechanism to make sure that the consumer is not unfairly targeted by exporting countries. That all countries do.
Okay. And we are coming to the final stage of the conversation. So in terms of expanding, and since the budget is coming, what was the conversation like? You mentioned you're not asking for more tariff, but what was with the conversations with the government before the budget? What did you actually ask, or what do you expect from the budget?
No, actually, what we expect from the government is to address this VAT issue, because there should be a proper administration of VAT.
How do you recommend to, like, what was your recommendation? Okay, address the VAT issue.
We were recommending advance collection of VAT.
Okay.
Imputed VAT.
Okay.
On an assumed selling price,
right,
like what other countries do.
Okay.
Because these are very common practice, and they can do that very easily, but it will not add to inflation. Certain amount of inflationary pressure will be there, but the problem, but then to counter that, it will allow local manufacturers to raise their head. Say, for example, small and medium scale manufacturers, how much they are struggling. Right, decently also they protested in front of opposite the central bank. Right, the government gave a 6 months extension on Parate execution. I asked the government, some ministers, after 6 months, what are you going to do? They'll come back again and ask for another 6 months. There should be a format to address these issues. There must be a long-term format to address these issues. Without doing that, if the government continues to shy away from these hard decisions,
So basically what you are asking is, okay, you have a imputed like a selling price. Let's say you import at like 100 rupees and then you, let's say 30% margin, and on that 30% you add 18% VAT.
Yeah.
And then after you sell it, you can claim the...
And also income tax.
Income tax, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
that is one thing. Number two, we told the government there must be mandatory import inspection of incoming goods to make sure that they comply with Sri Lanka standards. That is also very, very important. And number three is we told them to determine correctly the CIF price at declared CIF price to ensure that they declare the proper price.
Okay. On the quality standard, Mr. Jayasekara, when we had that conversation, I think what we learned was there's already Sri Lanka SLS standard,
yeah.
and the rejection rate was like very low. It's 99% is all approved. There's like, I think, less than 1% rejection rate. So are you still worried about the quality in that case? Because anyway, there's a...
In large measure, I am not really worried about the quality, Dhananath, because I cannot condemn a product, right? I mean, imported products are as good as the locally manufactured products. Sometimes there are better products also. In certain categories, we have better products. But there should be a permanent mechanism to make sure that they comply with the standards. That's what all other countries do now. Say, for example, if we export tiles to Singapore, we have been exporting tiles to Singapore for a long period of time until very recently. We completely lost that market to Malaysia. But they were basically consistently checking the quality of the product.
Okay, and on
they have to make sure that the quality is adhered to.
Quality is adhered. And on the second one, now if that VAT issue was sorted, do you agree to? I mean, are you okay? The government assures that the imputed VAT will be implemented, but they will bring down the cess and the PAL. Are you in line with that? Do you think?
We have they should decide to what extent they can do that. If that is the case, and if the declared value is okay, then there may be room to bring down cess and other levies.
Okay.
There may be, yes.
Okay. Anything else that I did not ask and you want to comment?
No, the only thing I want to comment upon is, Dhananath, now, these are very unfortunate situation because the tile industry has become the punching bag of everybody, really. Right?
We are saying to bring down everything. We are saying not only tiles, we are saying also on all cost of construction.
Because actually the problem is in this country, even the government and the politicians, they seem to think that making a private sector should not make money. You know, they are looked at with jealousy, anger, and that kind of sentiment, really. That is why I actually why tile industry is targeted, because tile industry has listed companies on the stock exchange. You know the results, but cement companies, do you know the results? Some other companies, do you know the result? They don't know the result. So because of that only, even there is no proper increase in the number of listed companies in this country. When I left the stockbroking industry, there were 240 listed companies in 1997. Today there are 320. 30 years, 80 companies. So have we made progress? No. That is because we are looking at these issues in a very negative manner. And what is happening is, construction industry, right? Cement, steel, cables, aluminium, all these things, prices have gone up maybe double, treble, certain cases quadruple. Nobody is talking about a mafia. Tile industry, actually pre-COVID prices are the prices now, but there is a mafia. Actually, mafia is not the manufacturer. Mafia is the importers.
Okay.
There is a huge importer mafia operating in the tile industry.
Okay. No, I 100% agree with you on that sentiment by people. If you're making money, people think someone you're outcast, or you think you are making money at someone else's expense.
Yes.
Which may, in certain cases, it may be, but definitely we are not supporting that sentiment. I mean, people all make money by adding value to each other. But I think overall, as you know, I mean, we have been very open. We have done a report on cost of construction, not only on Sri Lanka, but also in the region, in Bangladesh.
Because if I'm making money, if I'm making profits, that means my service is valued by the customer.
Absolutely.
That's how I look at it. It's not the corporate greed.
100%. So at the same time, that's why we said you have to agree on the level playing field as well. Because if you don't have to have a level playing field, that things would be tough. And I brought the example of chicken. But at the same time, I think the consumers, our logic was, I think we can agree to disagree, or our viewers, the consumers should also have the choice to make on prices. It could be on quality, it could be on design or anything, and that's what we stood for. And definitely 100% agree with you on we should not target the winners. And I think there was a saying that the winners are focused on winning and the losers are targeting the winners, which should not be the case for sure. And 100% agree on the level playing field. But at the same time, we believe in the marketing world, which you champion, the consumer is the king.
Of course, yes.
And they deserve the lowest price, highest quality. And that's what we stand for, being wanted to be the voice of the consumer.
That's what competition will bring about.
Absolutely. And that's the only way to reach is bringing the competition. Mr. Jayasekara, thank you so much. It has always been an honor to have a chat with you. It's so insightful, and we wish all the very best. Not many people know I think people know he's also the president of the YMBA, and you're doing great work all over the island, especially in the north and east. And he has studied Buddhism, which I got to know. I know he studied Buddhism, but on a very structured format. So all the very best with all your work, and wishing you and the company. I hope the bleeding era would be slightly you can overcome, and you will succeed in everything that you do. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Dhananath.
Please watch Advocata Plus content. Advocata Institute is our main channel on English language, but you will get the Sinhala content on Advocata Plus, and also we are present in Tamil on Advocata Kural. So the structure is the academic content, the serious content probably will be on Advocata Institute. You have a wonderful list of Ignite Growth Conference sessions free of charge. Of course, people who visited paid a price of 20,000 rupees, but you have the access because the secondary objective of Advocata is also enhance the education on economics. So that's why you get the access of these videos. So please watch that. And at the same time on Sinhala, you get more relevant content to day-to-day economics and how it matters your wallet. And Kural is mainly on the Tamil language. So please subscribe us, follow us. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, you name any platform. You should be able to find us. Thank you very much. Subscribe. We'll see you with another podcast next week.